Samurai Jack, Shadow of Aku. Now, Samurai Jack was one of my favorite shows ever on Cartoon Network, so obviously when they came out with a game... What? Oh, fuck. What the fuck is that?
This is a phaser. And this... No. And this is the stun setting. Transporter room. Beam this Jagoff up.
Aye, aye, sir.
Alright, boys and girls. It's time for a real review.
Sir, we have an intruder.
Touch me. Where is he? Actually, I hijacked this review. He won't be back till the end of the next episode.
Oh.
Bye.
What is there for me to do, sir?
You can get your ass back to the ship.
That's bullshit.
Alright guys, so if you couldn't guess, we're obviously going to do a Star Trek review today. Well, I say we, I mean me. Alright, I have a couple of Star Trek games here for us. First of all, I just wanted to talk briefly about the original Star Trek 25th Anniversary game for the NES. Now this game is really fun, and it was a really, really good game, really well done. It had a lot of cinematic value in it, especially during the intro and some of the cutscenes, if you want to call them cutscenes back on the NES. It's just a lot of people, including everybody's favorite AVGN, has done this game, so I'm not even going to bother touching on it. So in typical reviewer fashion, I'm going to throw it out of screen. However, I do have a couple of Super Nintendo games for us. First of all, we have Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Now, I was never a big Deep Space Nine fan, if you can believe that, because Deep Space Nine was about war and completely ruined Gene Roddenberry's methods of peace. Total bullshit. So, the first one that I'm going to review for you guys is one of my favorites, which is Star Trek Starfleet Academy Bridge Simulator. Starship Bridge Simulator. It was a very fun game, so let's get right into the review and I'll tell you more about it. Alright guys, so here it is, Star Trek Starfleet Academy, the Starship Bridge Simulator. Now the basic premise of the game is that you are a young cadet who has joined Starfleet Academy. You go through basic training missions and, you know, explore space. It's actually quite fun. I like to do the actual simulator, which is essentially quick play mode. Now what you have here, you have a couple of different episodes and some of the movies that you can replay. For example, the episode Balance of Terror, the very first Romulan movie, or episode. Then you have two of the movies, Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country. You can play certain parts of them. Just to be, you know, to show you some of the overview, I'm going to do combat training, in which you can select your ship. Alright? So, I like to choose... Now, let's go with Constitution class. Then, for the opponent, let's make our opponent a simple Klingon ship. Alright, now... While playing this game, you'll notice over on the side of the screen here, you have this bar. That is actually your impulse engines. So as I increase my speed, you'll see that my impulse engines also increase. I don't want to overtake my opponent too fast. Now, as you can see, I can fire phasers. You also want to follow your opponent on screen. Now, if you're fighting Klingons, you'll notice that they're actually going to cloak. They're not stupid. You can also fire photon torpedoes. And another interesting thing is that you can pivot your ship. So this is actually a pretty intense combat simulator for the Super Nintendo. As far as Star Trek games go, this is one of my favorite. Now, do you see this display around how you have, you know, your crew all around you? I wish this is what they had done in Star Trek Online, because that would have made that game just a tad bit more fun, in my opinion. Not that I didn't like Star Trek Online as it is, but that's a conversation for another day. So, as you go through the fight, you're going to notice that sometimes your impulse will go down because, you know, it's all the different hits as your shield go down is actually going to affect your engines. So you're not going to be able to get as much speed as you once could. And you're also not going to be able to take as much damage because your shields will fail a lot quicker. If you see the red bar over on the left, that is actually your health bar, basically. That tells you how much health you have left in the fight. Your opponent doesn't really have one. In some of the story missions they do, but in the actual simulators they really don't. So let's just kick this asshole's ass real fast. Yeah! Eat that, motherfucker! Alright, the next one I'm going to show you guys is Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Now, this is more along the story type missions. So, as you can see down here, you have a little sensor. Now, the blue blip is normally either a planet or your mission objective. It also can show you where your enemy is. Your enemy will be a red dot. If it's an upward pointing arrow, since it's a Super Nintendo, it's kind of hard to tell upward pointing arrows because they're very pixelated. Upward pointing arrow means your opponent is above you. Downward means that your opponent is below you. Now, on the select screen, you have a whole bunch of different stations you can choose from that help you advance in the story mode. For example, you can choose the alert, where you can set your ship status from, you know, green alert, yellow alert, or red alert. You can turn on or off your tactical. And you can also decide whether to use your tractor beam or not. Then you have your engineering, which during fights you can choose what you want to be the priority for your engineers to repair. I'm going to choose my shields. You have your science station. You can choose your radar mode, so that'll mean that you'll be able to see on your radar down there further away, or if you want to just be closer. I prefer long. Also, you have sensor sweeps, so that you can run sensor sweeps and scan for cloaked ships. Status reports in your computer. You can access information in the databases and the LCAR system. Also, you have your communications, where you can hail or, you know, see what your orders are. And finally, you have navigation, where you can warp to different coordinates in space. And there's a lot of different things you can do, and some of them are quite often wrong. Now, after the awesome warp sequence, you enter your story mode. Now, if you remember, and if you have seen Undiscovered Country, the dialogue continues pretty much exactly as it did in the actual movie. And it's very nice the way it's written, and I like it. So what you want to do is run your sensor sweep to see if you can find your opponent, which unfortunately I cannot because this ship is undetectable. So you continue as did until you get Chang saying that he can see you and that he is about to start attacking your ass. Now, in the actual movie, you could only, the ship was only detectable for a brief amount of times, and that's whenever it was close enough to fire on you, basically. Now, I cannot criticize this game for its graphics because, like I said, this is back in, like, early 90s. The graphics aren't that bad, it's just that I think they made it a bit too complicated. They're trying to do sort of like a PC-type simulator, and you just don't have enough buttons on your controller and enough time to do a whole bunch of the shit that they're trying to do. For example, you don't have time to keep alternating between, you know, engineering and checking what your shield status is, and you don't have enough time to check the status report every 5 seconds without interrupting the combat. You just want to get in there and keep fighting and firing. Unfortunately, it's not that kind of game. It's not a shooter type of game. You can't just, you know, get in there and, you know, keep shooting until the opponent's dead, because it's a bit more complicated than that. It's an actual Starship Bridge Simulator. It's actual simulator. So it's not that easy, and that's probably one of the main problems with this game. Now, the main problem with this game is that it's very complex, and due to the fact that you move so awkwardly and that it's far too easy to be going so fast that you pass by your opponent and that he's behind you already, that it makes it extremely easy to lose, especially during much more difficult missions. Also, the arrow does not help much, because whenever you're fighting cloaked ships like Romulans or Klingons, it's very easy just to completely pass them up, because they'll be like a very minute gray against all this black of space, and being colorblind, that's very hard for me to see. Alright, so that's basically enough of that game. That's enough to give you, you know, an overview and a basic look at what it is. It's not a bad game. I would suggest if you're a Star Trek fan and you have an extensive knowledge of the series, well then you're probably already playing Star Trek Online. So there's really no reason for you to buy it. But I would say pick it up if you ever see it out there and you're a Star Trek fan, if you like, games like this. I kind of like this game. It's very, very difficult. It's very challenging. If you like a challenge, go ahead and play it. The next game that we're going to be reviewing is Star Trek The Next Generation Futures Past. Now, the interesting thing about this game is that it has the subtitle of Futures Past, although it's never actually referred to as Futures Past. It's just called Next Generation. It doesn't say it on the cartridge. It doesn't even say it on the game screen. It only says Futures Past on the box, which I don't understand why they did that. So I'm going to go ahead and start reviewing this one in the next episode.